There was a man named Lazarus who lived in the village of Bethany with the two sisters, Mary and Martha, and he was ill. It was the same Mary, the sister of the sick man Lazarus, who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair. The sisters sent this message to Jesus: "Lord, the man you love is ill." On receiving this message, Jesus said, "This sickness will not end in death, but in God's glory, and through it, the Son of God will be glorified." Jesus loved Martha and his sister and Lazarus. Yet when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed where he was for 2 more days before saying to the disciples, "Let us go to Judea." The disciples said, "Rabbi, it is not long since the Jews wanted to stone you. Are you going back again?" Jesus replied, "Are there not 12 hours in a day? A man can walk in the daytime without stumbling, because he has the light of the world to see by. But if he walks at night, he stumbles, because there is no light to guide him." He said that and then added, "Our friend Lazarus is resting. I am going to wake him." The disciples said to him, "Lord, if he is able to rest, he is sure to get better." The phrase Jesus used referred to the death of Lazarus, but they thought that by rest he meant sleep. So Jesus put it plainly: "Lazarus is dead. And for your sake, I am glad I was not there, because now you will believe. But let us go to him." Then Thomas, known as the twin, said to the other disciples, "Let us go too and die with him." On arriving, Jesus found that Lazarus had been in the tomb for 4 days already. Bethany is only about 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to sympathize with them over their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus had come, she went to meet him. Mary remained seated in the house. Martha said to Jesus, "If you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now, whatever you ask God, he will grant you." "Your brother," said Jesus to her, "will rise again." Martha said, "I know he will rise again at the resurrection on the last day." Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and the life. If anyone believes in me, even though he dies, he will live. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" "Yes, Lord," she said. "I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who has come into the world." When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary, saying in a low voice, "The Master is here and wants to see you." Hearing this, Mary got up quickly and went to him. Jesus had not yet come into the village. He was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who were in the house sympathizing with Mary saw her get up so quickly and go out, they followed her, thinking that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Mary went to Jesus. As soon as she saw him, she threw herself at his feet, saying, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." At the sight of her tears and those of the Jews who followed her, Jesus said in great distress, with a sigh that came straight from the heart, "Where have you put him?" They said, "Lord, come and see." Jesus wept, and the Jews said, "See how much he loved him." But there were some who remarked, "He opened the eyes of the blind man. Could he not have prevented this man's death?" Still sighing, Jesus reached the tomb. It was a cave with a stone to close the opening. Jesus said, "Take the stone away." Martha said to him, "Lord, by now he will smell. This is the 4th day." Jesus replied, "Have I not told you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. Then Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank you for hearing my prayer. I knew indeed that you always hear me, but I speak for the sake of all these who stand around me, so that they may believe it was you who sent me. When he had said this, he cried in a loud voice, Lazarus, here, come out. The dead man came out, his feet and hands bound with bands of stuff and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, unbind him, let him go free. Many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary and seen what he did believed in him. The word of the Lord. If you've done your research, you will have noticed that the reading I took is not actually this coming Sunday's gospel reading, but rather one for liturgical year C, and we're in liturgical year B. However, when Father Ray asked me to present today, he suggested this reading, which I've stuck with, and as it turns out, is very relevant to what I would like to share with you all tonight. I, like Martha and Mary, have recently experienced a loss. I've experienced the loss of my beloved mother, who passed away at the age of 71 from breast cancer, which had spread to her liver and bones. When Mom was diagnosed 6 years ago, she carried on living her life faithful to her vocation of mother and grandmother after the passing of my father 24 years ago. Mom had always had a strong faith which she lived by, faithfully attending Mass every morning before her day began. She was a woman who loved God immensely, and it shone through her. She was gentle, kind, extremely generous, and a quiet spirit living in perfect harmony with everyone. She was loved and very much loved by people. The matriarch and pillar of our family who unified us all. I, together with my sisters, at finding out Mom's diagnosis, were all left in shock. Somehow, although I knew that Mom's longevity was compromised, I never quite saw or imagined the end, nor even did I want to believe that it would come. I plainly thought and believed that God would heal Mom. Friends, church community all came together and we prayed, and we never stopped pleading for Mom's recovery, offering prayers and petition as Martha and Mary did when they sent that message to Jesus to say, the one that you love is ill. Through the 6 years that Mom lived with cancer, she continued to defy the odds. I mean, she looked so well and strong, and she even surprised doctors when she attended the hospital appointments. They would ask my sister, who attended the appointments with her, so who is this patient with a stage 4 cancer? She looked that well. At no point was she ever bedridden. Even towards the end of Mom's life, looking back now, there was no sign that this was indeed the end. So naturally, there were no final goodbyes said on my part, neither on the part of my siblings. Mom slipped off quietly into the night after a very normal day. I look back on Mom's life and see that one constant factor, her utter faith and trust in God. She would say, the Eucharist keeps me alive. He is my medicine. He does wonderful things for me. She loved going on pilgrimages, and she'd been to Lourdes, the Holy Land, Italy, and when the doctors had offered her another round of chemotherapy, she politely declined, saying she'd rather go to Fatima, and she did. Her faith was very lively like that. The gospel reading today brings up for me many things. When Jesus is told that Lazarus is ill, he stays an extra 2 days because he himself knows that Lazarus will die, but he will come back to life. He knows that Lazarus will find life again, but only through him. We are told that the disciples questioned him about this decision to go back to Judea, because the Jews there had actually wanted to stone him previously. Thomas the twin even says, "Let us go too and die with him." I always imagined Thomas to be one of extremes. But the true love of Jesus for Lazarus, he decides to take the risk with his life, even when he knows that his own life is in danger, just to go back and bring back life to Lazarus, and to awaken the faith of those around him, and also to console Martha and Mary. Not only that, but Jesus is going so that he can show a sign to those who doubted him, to show them of who he really was and still is. There are moments when I've wondered why the Lord did not heal Mum. After all the pleading and pleading we had done, why was she taken from us so soon, when she still had many years in her and the strong will to live on? I've heard of miracles happening, people being healed, some of them even from the brink of death. Why was this not the case for Mum? I know that the answer is I will probably never know. God's ways are not our ways. But I have also come to know that God doesn't just take away without giving the gift of himself through his comforting presence. When I received the phone call telling me that Mum was no more, I remember the devastation and brokenness. But I also very vividly remember coming over me a deep sense of peace and serenity beyond all understanding. Actually, it left me a little confused. I thought, why am I not all over the place? Why am I still composed? There was comfort and light. It just did not make any sense. Today, there are moments when her death still doesn't make any sense, where the pain is still very raw at times, when I need to hear Mum's wise words, or her laughter, or just her voice even, but I cannot do that. However, I believe Mom is closer to me now in the spirit, in nature so beautiful, in my amazing sisters, in my wonderful sons, nieces, nephews, and even in the small coincidences that I experience in my life. Mom is gone from my sight, but her spirit lives on. In the gospel reading, Jesus says he is the resurrection and the life, and that if anyone believes in him, he will never die. Even if he does die, he will live. Meditating upon the cross of Jesus, he had to die to live. He had to enter this new life that he spoke about, to actually show it to us that we can believe that it really does exist. Jesus' resurrection shows me that there is life beyond the grave, and that it doesn't end with death as we know it. This gives me so much hope that Mum's life did not end with death. Yes, of course, I cannot pick up the telephone to speak to her, nor will I ever see her physical presence here on earth to give her a hug or even touch her. However, I know that she lives on because she was a believer and truly loved God through Jesus, who she received faithfully at Mass through the Eucharist every morning. I find it quite moving that Jesus wept as he proceeded to go to the tomb of Lazarus. This shows me a tender side to him. He feels what I feel, and he knows of my difficulties and struggles. He comes down to my level to be with me. Yes, he is God, and he comes down to my level. All the while, he still urges and invites me to believe in him and trust him. Might I add, that never in a forceful way, but always so loving and gentle and comforting. Even if it's difficult, when it just does not make any sense. Sometimes it can feel easy to give up the hope and even give in to despair until all my demands and questions to my answers have been satisfied, especially when the sad and dark days seem to make hope pointless. It's even easy to question belief itself. However, I come back to tell myself I'll never know it all, and I could never contain his ways and why he does things the way that he does, all in my tiny human mind. So giving up for me is not an option. I will still choose to believe, even when it is hard and I just do not understand. I think to the cruel suffering and death of Jesus itself, it did not make any sense, but there was greater reason for it, which is love. Also, I have seen so much goodness from the Lord in my life, and I cannot give up because of the rough and difficult patches. I also find the prayer that Jesus said aloud to his Father rather beautiful. It shows an intimate, wonderful relationship, one of trust, gratitude, and love. We are told that Jesus said this so that the crowds hereby could hear and believe that it was God who had sent him. I wonder also if it's Jesus showing us how to relate to him and the Father here. After all, he tells us he came to show us the Father. A very simple, tender, and uncomplicated prayer, like many of them we hear Jesus say when he talks to his Father throughout the Gospels. Over the months, there are many questions that I've had about life and mortality, its meaning, the end, death, the afterlife. It can all consume me at times, trying to make sense of it all. Why do others die so young? And why do others have so many years behind them? Again, I don't think there will ever be an answer to all the questions that I have. But I feel that the experiences of life are all there to teach me and enrich me whilst I'm here on earth. We can draw a lot from even the really bad and sad experiences to the really happy ones, and even those experiences which might seem very mundane. We're not meant to just exist in this world, but rather live and live well. Not to sound grim, but we're also headed for one final destination. And I've thought to myself, well, what will that be like for me? And all for my loved ones? Will I be ready? Will I not be ready? Will it be sudden? Will we even have time to say our goodbyes? I do wonder. Now, the life of Lazarus, after he'd been awakened from the dead, I wonder what that would have been like. Never the same, I should imagine. He had been truly favored by God. He had been given a new lease of life. Every day I wake up, I too am given a new lease. I can therefore live in hope, faith, love, and joy. And yes, even in this time of pandemic and grief, because life is a gift, and life with the Lord, an even more wonderful one. I've pondered on what Jesus said before he sets off to Bethany, to Martha and Mary, when he says, "Are there not 12 hours in the day? A man can walk in the daytime without stumbling, because he has the light of the world to see by. But if he walks at night, he stumbles, because there is no light to guide him." This phrase almost seems disconnected from the question being asked to Jesus at the time, which was about him returning to Judea, where the Jews had previously wanted to stone him. However, we read in another gospel passage, specifically in John chapter 8, verse 12. That's when Jesus refers to himself as the light of the world. where he specifically says, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. I think that Jesus here is actually reaffirming who he is, and he is giving his disciples encouragement of whom they are walking with. I too can therefore be assured that as long as I walk with him, I will not stumble, because I walk with the light of the world. I would like to share with you a beautiful poem that a friend gave to me. It speaks to me very personally. I mean, some of you might have heard it. It's called I'm Standing Upon the Seashore. I am standing upon the seashore, a ship at my side spreads her white sails to the morning breeze and starts for the blue ocean. She is an object of beauty and strength. I stand and watch her until at length she hangs like a speck of white cloud, just where the sea and the sky come to mingle with each other. Then someone at my side says, there, she is gone. Gone where? Gone from my sight, that is all. She is just as large in mast and hull and spar as she was when she left my side, and she is just as able to bear her load of living freight to her destined port. Her diminished size is in me, not in her. And just at that moment when someone at my side says, there she is gone, there are other eyes watching her coming and other voices ready to take up the glad shout. Here she comes, and that is dying. Thanks very much for listening to me.